Well, good morning. Welcome to American Reversion. I'm Steve Smith, and how are you all today? I thought I'd address the question today as to whether I think America can be saved, as to whether it can survive. The last one that I did, it was about what I have come to believe is the inevitability of revolution in our country because of different things that have happened. However, someone comes down on that, people are going to have different ideas. That's not really what we're going to talk about here. I want to talk about what we might want to be thinking in either preserving what we believe in as America or how we prepare for what might come. Okay. Whether you think of it as the United States, excuse me just a second. Sorry, I had to sneeze, so if you see tears in my eyes, that was what it was. I'm not crying over America. It's allergy season here in Kansas. Whether you view America as the state of mind that many people feel is in America, or whether you think of as America as the corporate United States of America, makes a big difference as to how this plays out. I don't believe that the United States of America will survive much longer as the corporate United States. I am hopeful that the idea, the state of mind of America, will prevail. How that will prevail, we'll be talking about, I'm sure, a lot in the future. And I think that's what's important. I don't believe that it is important that the United States, as it's going now, survive. I know that's going to be shocking, but I've been feeling this since the 90s, to be honest. When I came to understand the truths of our government and the truth of what they'd been doing for so long around the world and here in our country, I asked myself, as many of you have, how can I support this? How can I continue to support this? How can I call myself a patriot if patriot means that I'm standing in support of what this government is doing? Well, different people have different ideas of what a patriot is. And I don't really care to wrap myself in that. Doesn't matter to me. I prefer to view myself as a person who stands up for what is right. And if you're supporting a system that does what is wrong, then you're not standing up for what is right. Okay, and people will have a name for that, but the names don't matter. The realities do. There is no way that our country can continue to go along the road it's been traveling for quite a while. We see what they're doing in Ukraine. We see what they're doing with the border. We see what they're doing with our economy. We see what we're doing with our politics. We see all of those things. And we have seen that our efforts to try to correct these things have not been successful. The ways that we've been doing it have not been effective. What would success look like to those who feel like we do? It would look like a small central government. It would look like sovereign states deciding as a result of fair voting within each state what path that state is going to take. It would entail a government that is not involved in the micromanagement of individual lives. A country or a state that promotes freedom and personal responsibility. It would be a state that rewards production instead of punishes production, that rewards creativity, that supports individuality and personal liberties and freedoms. It would be a place in which the government protects the freedoms of the individual as opposed to subverting the freedoms of the individual. And we could go on and on. You could add to my list, you all are smart. You can make a list as long as you like. Feel free to put your list down there in the comments. I will be interested to read them, and I'm sure everyone else will be. We see the great division in our country, not as racial or religious or anything else. We see it communist versus others. And we've seen that the division is between the producers and those who only consume, between the givers and the takers, between those who have built this country and those who seek to tear it down. Okay. And for the most part, we see those divisions as not being between the states or even regions of the country, but between the cities and the non-cities. Okay, and when we talk about non-cities, I'm not talking about rural areas necessarily. That when you look around the country, the dark blue areas are the central cities. They're not really where most of the people live. They're where they are most densely packed, and they run the city governments and the city police departments, but they don't include most of the suburbs. As you get farther outside of the central part of a city, you find it becoming much more conservative. Okay, so for instance, if you took Kansas City, that I'm most intimately familiar with, Kansas City, the city of Kansas City, which is the urban core, almost 100%, and it's a wasteland, 100% liberal Democrat. And when you get outside of that, it becomes very, very conservative. I want to read you something that is happening in Kansas right now. And this is, I think, how we return. And there may need to be a fragmentation. It's going to be really interesting. And whether it's going to take, let me put it this way, whether a revolution comes out of this or not, I have no idea. But we will see. I want to read something here from... it's one of the, I forget which, it's from one of the Kansas newspapers, and it's what's going on in Kansas. And this is from the Kansas Reflector, which is a real lib brag out of Topeka, which is the state capital. And of course, they are approaching this from a very negative standpoint. But the truth still comes out, right? And truth comes out. They're writing for their audience. But we see the truth in this, and this is a great lesson. And I think this is how, I don't think we take this country back. I think we reform the country. Maybe it becomes, who knows? We'll talk about that more later. Okay, so this is, let me give, okay, this is by Sherman Smith. I'm ashamed he shares my last name. He was probably adopted. For the Kansas Reflector. Adam Peters, here's his story. Adam Peters laced his sermon from Reno County Republicans with conspiracy theories about a liberal plot to turn their children against them. LGBTQ-friendly church pastors who signed a contract with Satan, the ubiquitous travesty of critical race theory, and make-believe enemies working to foment violent conflict. See, he's already lying. I mean, these people live in fantasy land, right? He will get on his unicorn and ride away. And now we have under a subheader, Church and State, which they, of course, totally misunderstand. Kansas Reflector is examining, this isn't his story, this is a little insert from the newspaper. Kansas Reflector is examining the influence of religious beliefs on state government through a series of stories. On Monday, they will be covering conservatives, Kansas as a conservative sanctuary. So that's what we're talking about here, that Kansas is trying to make itself a conservative sanctuary. Hey, how about that? That's what we need. That's what's going on. On Tuesday, LGBTQ targets. Wednesday, private education. Thursday, abortion rights, the rights to murder children. Friday, systemic racism. Where have you seen that except against whites? And State House spirituality on Saturday. Okay. Peters, he goes on, the GOP chairman in Ellis County and an author for far-right publications, talked for 2 hours at the March 2nd meeting at the Riverside Baptist Church in Hutchinson. A Baptist church, where he was joined by 2 state legislators, and local GOP officials. He outlined his plans, tinted by hints of violence and the assurance that God is on their side, to turn Kansas into a conservative sanctuary. See, this is why you need to keep up on some of those lib rags too. Okay, the conversation, secretly recorded and shared with Kansas Reflector, celebrated religious beliefs that correspond directly with policies embraced by the legislature during this year's session. From the meeting's opening prayer to the ending prayer, a divine calling was made clear. Republicans must purge the state of anyone who disagrees with their extremist positions on the LGBTQ community, reproductive health care, education, and race. Quote, if you can make it hostile to that group of people, that small sliver of society, and have them move elsewhere, that does a huge amount to shut this down, Peters said. It's both sides of it. You need to attract the good people here, and you also need to make it clear to the bad people this isn't going to go well for you. Exactly right. He said everything right there. See, there is an effort on the part of many Kansas legislators to make Kansas a conservative sanctuary, and every state needs to do that. Missouri is doing that very well. Texas, to be honest, is having some problems. Hey guys, my good friends down there, I've always said that Texas is just a big Kansas, and they've always assured me that Kansas is just a small Texas. But you're being swamped by the blueies down there, and you're letting those California transplants take over your state and open your border, and there's gonna be another Alamo down there if this goes much further. I'm not going at you. I'm praying for you, and I'm hoping for you. Okay, you got to take the reins. You got to get involved in this stuff politically. Let me repeat that, because they're saying this as this is horrible, and I'm saying it. This is the solution. If you can make it hostile to the group of people, that small sliver of society, and that's what we're talking about. All these wacko groups, you need to make it hostile to them and have them move elsewhere. Good. California, it's all ready for you. I'm sorry for you folks, you good folks. There's a dozen good folks out there in California, I think. So for you all, come to Kansas. It's not as pretty as California, but man, I tell you, it feels better. I'll start again. If you can make it hostile to that group of people, that small sliver of society, and have them move elsewhere, that does a huge amount to shut this down. It's both sides of it. You need to attract the good people here, and you also need to make it clear to the bad people, this isn't going to go well for you. Right. The Kansas Reflector is examining, now we're beyond his quote, Kansas Reflector is examining the influence of religious beliefs on state government through a series of stories. With supermajority control of both the Senate and House, Republican lawmakers routinely entertain policy ideas shaped by fringe religious groups, like Christians, right? Restrictions placed on transgender residents. Restrictions? Like what? They have no restrictions except that they can't take their kids down to have them, whatever. Anti-abortion propaganda. What? Tax dollars for private schools, a refusal to acknowledge systemic racism. A religious pulse shakes every pillar of the State House. Good. From invocations that begin daily sessions to competing morning prayer groups to a spiritual advisor who roams the halls, the Bible clutched in John Brown's hand in the famous mural on the second floor. That's right. You all know that's where that mural was of John Brown up there with it. I'm not a fan of John Brown, but he's in the Kansas State House. Let me repeat that. A religious pulse shakes every pillar of the State House, that's Kansas, from invocations that begin daily sessions to competing morning prayer groups, to a spiritual advisor who roams the halls, to the Bible clutched in John Brown's hand and the famous mural on the second floor. The application of religion takes various shapes in legislative debate, as justification for attacks on marginalized people. Nobody's attacking any marginalized people. Nobody. Those who consider themselves marginalized are certainly attacking others, but nobody's attacking marginalized people. Or a rebuke to the prevailing vote. So you're not supposed to agree with something that is totally contrary to your beliefs. You're not supposed to. Representative Tobias Schlingensipen, wow, a Topeka Democrat, appears at an election night watch party for Okay, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have read that. That was well. For Representative Tobias Schlingensipen, a Democrat who serves as senior minister at First Congregational Church in Topeka, a far-lib church, there is a right way and a wrong way to combine religion and politics. I'm sure there is. According to him, I'm sure that it is, he gets to say what he wants and the other side doesn't. He said a Christian politician should be looking out for people who don't have a voice and criticizing those who have all the money and power. That is not at all biblical. This shows how whacked out these people are. In an interview for this series, Schlingensipen responded to Peter's comments from the meeting in Hutchinson. Schlingensipen condemned those who misunderstand themselves as the moral gatekeepers of society, the ones who want to decide who's good with God and who isn't. Well, I'll tell you what, we don't decide, God decides. Okay? All right? God decides. And when this country was based on the principles found in this book, right there. That's the way it was supposed to be. And when they started perverting this, that's when our country started to fall. I'll put this up over, I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'll put this up over on the Patreon channel if you want to read the whole article, and it's pretty good. You should. I see that as the solution. See, we need to take back the states. There is no chance that we are going to be able to save the United States of America. But there is a great opportunity for us to direct our efforts in taking the states and creating, as they're talking about here in Kansas, a conservative sanctuary. In this case, we get separation, we get partition, we get balkanization, hopefully not a civil war, but what happens, happens. Okay. But we have our greatest effect locally, whether it's our city, our county, or our state. The federal government has shown itself to be enemies of our freedom for long enough. If people don't understand that by now, they probably never will, or they think that they're our friends because the federal government is doing what they want. So this is the answer, and I'll be interested to hear what you have to say. But my answer to the question, can America be saved, is no. We have to think about, plan for, and work for what comes next. That's the reversion that we're after. So remember, it needs you to be a part of it, whether it's the classic reversion that we talked about or whether it's something entirely different. It needs you to be a part of it. It needs you to be working for it and fighting for it. And it needs me to do the same. It needs all of us to do this. In the previous, and the one that I did for integrative preparedness, I took a comment made by Triple G in on the Patreon channel. He says that he doesn't know what a revolution might look like if it happens, but he thinks that it will start on social media. That's where you can have the greatest impact and a great effect. Start your own channel. Be involved in your Facebook. Be involved in Twitter. Be involved in TikTok. Be involved in all of these things, because that is the battleground of today. Respond to videos like this. Leave your comments. Leave thumbs up. Make sure that you subscribe. Subscribe to Patreon channels. That's a great way to give support, not just to mine, but to other people that you feel may be, doing the work that you want them to do. And start your own channel. It doesn't matter whether you become big or small. It matters that you reach more people than you're reaching now, and that's what's going to prepare, hopefully, for our being able to successfully renew what America is supposed to be. Not as a saving of what it is today, but a new one. You all have a good day. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.